Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. So we are really happy to be here in Istanbul today, especially because we were scaring a little bit. We are able to come with this snowstorm, but it seems that everything disappeared, so it's great. And also because I would like to remember to Gizem that when she came to Brussels for the kick-off meeting last March, it was just the day of the Brussels attack. So we made it, and I'm really happy to be here with you today and with a lot of our, let's say, South European members of our network. Well, yeah, it's okay. So first of all, I will present ACR Plus in general, and my colleague Lisa will go more in depth regarding what we did with Buğday in this project. So what is ACR Plus, our philosophy, and why we decided to go together with this Turkish compost project? First of all, ACR Plus, I would like to emphasize on that. It's an international technical network. So technical network, it means that we gather together local and regional authorities aiming to promote sustainable material resource management, but more with technicians. So we try to have best practices, exchanges, and information regarding technical feasibility of different way of management. Of course, we know, and it was just mentioned before, that a political will is always important, but when you can prove to your decision makers that you can make it, that it's feasible, and that it can also give you a cost efficiency, like it was mentioned just before, we think that it's really important. So based on, let's say, technical and practical background. So technical network with more than 20 years experience and international network. So we have different members from nearly all the member states of the European Union, but also we have members in the South Mediterranean area and the neighborhood policy area of the EU. We have different activities. So we are currently running 13 EU-funded projects where we involve our members. We have also our own activities. For example, one of biggest one, I would say, is the EPR Club. So we gather together all stakeholders of the value chain of the extended producer responsibility in Europe, and we organize conferences and exchange of information regarding extended producer responsibility. And I know that you have already this system in Turkey, especially for packaging waste. We also publish technical reports. And we have a weekly newsletter where we try to give information regarding EU legislation, good practices among our members, but also outside the Europe. And we have always a focus on the Mediterranean area. Why? Because, as it was already mentioned, we have our specificities in the, let's say, Mediterranean basin, with a specific composition of waste, a certain common climate. Well, maybe not today, it's like Brussels today, but yeah, so it makes, of course, the difference. So, as mentioned, we are a network of local and regional authorities, but since the beginning, since the creation of ACR+, we have decided to also open the network to other stakeholders. So we give services to public authorities, and they are the sole one who can vote to the General Assembly and to be member of the board. But we also invite other members, and that's why we have also private companies and consultancies, because it's not always only the job of public authorities when you deal with sustainable material resource management. So we are based in, or we have link members in 23 countries. We represent more than 1,000 municipalities because among our members we have also national and regional local authorities associations. And you can see here different members, and of course we have Porto area with Lipor today with us. We have the Catalan agency in Spain. We have the north of Italy with Erica and Aika, and we have Brussels with Brussels Environment, the regional administration in Brussels today with us. And what we also have, we have a special category for, let's say, the South Mediterranean countries. We have invited members. So for the time being, we have already 11 invited members coming from the South Mediterranean countries. So, of course, it's an invitation to you to join our network, because I think that it's really important to exchange information and practices and to see, because don't think that we didn't do any error. We will present you good practices. I prefer to speak about good practices than best practices. It's not that it was decided it's a good practices from a day to another. We did some error. We know that we can improve, but we also want to share with you our experience, because we can show that it works, that it's feasible. And this is the main message I would like to give you today. So our philosophy. It's maybe interesting to know why we were created. It was in '94, and it was because in the European Union, a big directive, important directive was adopted, the Waste Packaging Directive. So it meant for local authorities that they had to settle up selective collection schemes on their territory. And so we decided to create, I mean, not myself, but some founder, previous members, decided to create this network in order to exchange practices. How do you do? We have to go to the same aim. We have to settle up a selective collection. What can we do, and what are your experiences, etc. And that's why the network was created. Another, always the philosophy was that it's better to trying to close the loop, so to try to have this management instead of this linear economy. So trying to, of course, reduce waste production at source, and if not possible, to have a very effective and efficient selective collection in order to be able to recycle more and more. And of course, like that, to use less and less the last solution, landfilling or incineration. So like that, we consider that waste is a resource. And that's why we have to produce less waste. And when it is produced, we have to reuse, repair, or recycle. And of course, with composting, we are completely in this trend. Yeah. Another very important point of our philosophy is that when it is possible, because of course you will have less environmental impact, and also more economic impact, because you can create local jobs, try to promote short circle first, so locally. So I think that it was mentioned before, the waste hierarchy. We have also in our philosophy this territorial hierarchy. So when it is possible, promote local solutions. So why our involvement in the Turkey Compost project? Of course, because we were solicited, but we thought it was a very good initiative, and for us it's really important to tackle this organic fraction and to work with municipalities, especially in the Mediterranean area, because, as I mentioned before, we are also working with this part of the, let's say, the world. It's not only Europe, but it's also our neighbors, and we really believe in this close relation, because we are geographically we are also close. So, I've mentioned organic fraction, very important, and also the Mediterranean area. So I think that Gisem mentioned that our role was quite small, and I don't have to say a lot after the, I think, very comprehensive and perfect presentation that we had from Izmir University, and also the conclusion. I like it very much because it's exactly what we would like to say today with you. But yes, we try to have some research activities regarding good composting practice in Europe, and in order to share it with you, and to draft the report that I think you can find in the bag that you receive in the morning. And we organized 3 field visits. One in Italy regarding agriculture areas, one in Catalonia regarding touristic area, and in Brussels for the urban areas. And you will have, I think, more details regarding the 3 topic area in the afternoon. And we help Buğday to draft the handbook on compost for local governments. So now I will give the floor to Lisa. She will give you more detail about our involvement and the best practices in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're the lucky ones taking your time for lunch, but I'm sure you will still get enough time to enjoy. What I'm going to do now is just quickly talk a bit about organic waste management and composting as a, so to say, introduction to the afternoon, where we will have speakers from the European Union and also from Turkey. Some of them are our members, some of them we collaborate with quite regularly, especially on composting. And to kind of give a push or a start to that program in the afternoon, what I'm going to do is more give some general conditions and key factors that we need to consider when setting up organic waste management strategies. Some of them were mentioned already by Gökim from the university, so I will go there a bit faster in order not to bore you. So this we heard already. The importance of managing organic waste lies in the fact that it's the largest fraction of municipal waste. So if we find a solution for that, we already have the biggest part of the municipal waste properly managed, and that's a very important solution. And if we don't do that, then we cause quite substantial environmental damage if we put it into landfill, which is currently happening mostly in Turkey, as we heard. This we heard already, so I can skip that. Obviously, the production of biogas leachate and bad smells, and also the impoverishment of the soil. This is a point that I would like to highlight again. We have heard it already, but it's something that is really essential for us, and also when we discuss with our members when they set up their strategies 5, 10, 20 years ago. Source separation and separate collection of organic waste is really crucial if you want to have a better success with composting. It's of course also possible if you don't do it, but it can create a lot of problems. So if you look at the comparison, this is the advantages of composting from separate sources, and then we have the disadvantages from non-separate sources. And you see the difference in quality, regarding the resource. Of course, if you do composting from separate sources, you can really produce a resource, a fertilizer, and a soil amendment. While on the other hand, you lose it if you have the contamination with other items like metals or plastic or even hazardous waste. Sorry. And due to the usage of non-separately collected waste. The biological process of composting can be very simple and can be easily managed and controlled, while the MBT, which is usually the opposite solution, can be difficult to control and can create some additional problems. With composting, especially if you also consider composting options like home or community composting, but also the fact that the compost product will be used by agriculture, this creates really a community involvement. So So this is an additional advantage. And then, of course, the coherence with legislative objectives and with climate change mitigation, which is an additional factor we should consider. When setting up composting facilities, of course, the operational aspects are extremely crucial, and these were the main problems, as I heard, with the facilities that were set up in Turkey. But we shouldn't forget that there are other factors that can help or that are crucial to consider when we talk about composting and when we set up a new strategy. Legislation and legislative issues, we already spoke about that, so I'm not going to mention that, but one additional thing I wanted to mention here, which is of course not in the hands of municipalities, but more on a regional or national level, are landfill taxes and gate fees for landfill, which have been really, really helpful in a lot of European countries to push for other options and move away from landfill. So that's something that we shouldn't forget as an option. Social acceptance and public awareness, so education and communication campaigns, but this was also touched upon already in the morning, the fact that you need to involve your community. If you don't get your people to separate the waste or to contribute properly to the process, then it's not going to work. So setting up the right facility is one thing, but then making your community involved in it and using it properly is very essential. So information, holding meetings, but also the type of messages. Use clear messages, explain how the waste must be separated, how the cycle works, so that people understand why it's actually important that they separate and that they put the right things in the right bins. And guided visits can also help to understand the process better. The use of compost and the marketing, we already heard a few things about that as well. There are four main aspects that we usually talk about when speaking about use of compost and marketing. So the product itself, give it a quality label. We have seen in the different study visits and also in general, if you market your product well, if you give it a label and if you sell it with pride, the quality product, then you create a kind of involvement also of the local community. This is the waste that is, this is a beautiful product that is produced from our organic waste. So a quality label, of course, considering different quality criteria, but this we heard already, what means good compost, we heard in the presentation before, so I don't have to go into that too much. Price is ideally calculated by unit price and profit margin. Of course, it depends. You can't give your compost product an extremely high price, then nobody will buy it. But it needs to be still a valuable resource, and you should be careful with too low prices. As we heard, it's an important fertilizer, and you can and should feel free to market it in that way. The place, the location, we also already heard about that. When thinking about where to set up your composting facility, consider the location of competitors, the acceptance by the population, transport distance and costs, but also the location of customers. So not only where the waste comes from, but also where the compost will go to. So between the city and the agricultural complexes, for example, as we heard. And promotion, of course, promote the product that you have. Raise some general awareness on your compost, explain the benefits and the use of compost, and encourage customers to buy your product, especially with the reasons that we heard this morning for the big market of usage here in Turkey with the big agricultural fields that you have. Climate and weather conditions, just quickly. Of course, a temperate climate is optimal for composting, but you can do it also in different conditions. So for example, here we're in a very dry and hot area. What you can then do is just provide simply a cover to the windrow in order not to lose too much water content and to keep the balance. But composting also works in very cold environment and in snow. And there you just have to adapt according to your climate conditions. And for this, associations like Buğday, they're really big experts, and all the exchange that we had over the course of the project showed us that that they know what they're doing, and they can help you also to implement and to adapt to your climate conditions. And then, of course, as we said before, it's not only important to consider the operational aspect, but also the changes in local waste management systems. Yes, need, of course, to consider all operational aspects and to adapt the infrastructure. So not using infrastructure that is not fit for the local conditions or for the local climate. But also it needs to be accompanied by awareness-raising campaigns, by communication. It needs to be monitored and controlled, so you need to know what happens. And you need to check that regularly in order also to be able to adapt. And then if you see, okay, something is not fit, or we need to improve this and that, this you need to find out and then change accordingly. And of course, everything is more efficient if it's supported by the right legislation and by the right economic instruments and legislation that is also enforced. So, yeah. A few key messages that we discussed that we want to give you with today before we start in the afternoon. Organic waste management is key in successful municipal waste management strategies. So wherever we look at all good practices of our members, everything that is always on every conference where you see the best practices from Europe, the organic fraction and how it's managed is always a key and an essential part of their strategy. So whatever you want to do, whatever kind of ambition you have in your municipality, if you want to move forward in the way how you manage your waste, you have to tackle organic waste. It's the biggest fraction, it's a very important fraction, it can be very dangerous, but it can also be extremely beneficial to your agriculture and to your community if you manage it well. And it contributes to climate mitigation. Separate collection of the wet and the dry fraction is a great start. So if you have, at the moment, no separate collection, everything goes to landfill, try to start with the separation of the organic waste and the separation of the dry recyclables. And you can make some money from the material resources that you have from the dry recyclables, and you can have beautiful compost as a product from the organic waste. But then I also wanted to highlight that centralized composting is not the only solution, and we will hear some examples this afternoon. Home and community composting are also very, very nice solutions, and you shouldn't forget to consider them. The advantage there is that you don't have to collect the waste, but it stays where it's generated. So if you implement the right campaigns and if you involve the community, this can help a lot. Also to reduce your costs, for example. And it helps to strengthen the neighborhood spirit. Yes, this is something that we discussed during some of the study visits. We very often hear also from some of our Southern European members, you in Northern Europe, you can do that, but with our population that's not possible. And then you go a bit northern, and then you are in Italy, for example, and South Italy say, yeah, you in Northern Italy, you can do that, but we in South Italy, we can't do that. Our population is different. So it's the same story, you see, and at one of our visits, the Turkish municipality said to me, yeah, you here in Belgium, maybe you can do that, but we with our population, no way. No, everybody has started from zero, and it's possible, it's definitely possible with everybody. All people are rational, and they want to do something good for the environment. And if you give them the right reasons, and if you explain the process well, and if you involve them, then it's possible. So everybody has to start from zero, but it's not impossible. Networking and exchanging of experience like we do today can be of crucial help, and we can help you with that. So, yeah, as a last message, the invitation to join us. The beautiful part about the invited membership that is exclusive to municipalities from the neighborhood countries and from South Mediterranean is that it's free. So for 5 years, it's limited to a 5 years period, but during that time it's free. So you can join us for free, and then you can benefit from all this networking and exchange of experience that we offer. So if you're interested in that, just come see us during the breaks. Yeah, that's it. This is what Google Translate told me. I hope it's correct. So teşekkür ederim. Thank you very much, and enjoy your lunch.